Thank you, dear Mark. Hello, beautiful Neshamot. I'll make mention that I am in Jerusalem, which is currently at war, even if it's not always palpable. And so there may be alerts for missiles. And so I would move in a protected area if that happens. I'll try not to disrupt too much. I want to talk about the heart today. I'll share with you actually that I prepared a source sheet as usual, which was going to be from the commentary of the Kedushat Levi, Yitzhak Levi Miberditchev, on Parashat Vayekel, something that I've studied in my class, and it was like a small excerpt because I was so moved by it, and I thought it was so beautiful that I thought I want to share it with you. But then something changed as we were opening the session. So you still have the source sheet, but I want to share something else with you today. I want to talk about the heart. I was rereading the opening of Parashat Vayekel today, and I was struck by the number of times that the parasha mentions the heart and the generosity. And because my orientation right now, the orientation of my spiritual practice is very much actually about heart opening, most of the people in Israel feel very connected to the people of Iran. But we actually have the same interest in this war for different reasons. For them, it's to put an end to oppression. And for us, it's to put an end to threat. And so we both hope that there is democracy in Iran soon so that there can be cooperation and friendship and circulation among us. And so it's a very strange war where, my country is at war with a regime, but it's not at war with the people. Okay? And the peoples, I don't know if you've seen on social media, I hope you haven't too much because social media are not so good usually, but you see a lot of testimonies of Iranians and Israelis who actually feel heard and supported by each other. And Iranians sometimes say that they feel much more supported by Israelis than by other people in the Western world who want to make them understand that this war is bad just because of who is doing it. And I don't want to talk more about, international, politics. I want to talk about the reality of two peoples who are undergoing a life threat, which is called war. And I want to invite us to do a meditation of heart opening. So in the mindfulness tradition, it's called a loving kindness meditation. Can I see by a show of hand who is familiar with that? Loving kindness meditation? Many of you? So did you know that in the Jewish tradition, we actually really, 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 really have our own indigenous loving kindness meditation? Did anyone know that? And I'm not talking about Jewish mindfulness, loving kindness. I'm talking about the actually Jewish indigenous one. Some of you? And that's the Birkat Kohanim. Okay, that's the priestly blessing that is being said every morning for each of us, whether we're here or not, whether we know it or not, whether we're connected or not, whether we know it exists or not, for millennia. So that's the meditation we're going to do today. But because I want us to connect to the text first, I actually want to show you the parasha directly, the parasha. So I'll share my screen with the Chabad website. I'm not a fan of, some Chabad commentaries or positions or etc. But I like their parasha because it's side by side. The text is side by side, and it's easy for me to read. And I'm grateful for the resource. So I'm going to show this to you in a moment. But just to kind of locate where we are in the biblical narrative and why the heart matters so much, I want to take a step back. We're in Parashat Vayekel. A couple of parashot ago, it was Kitisa. Kitisa is the parasha known for the one of a kind of fall of the Jewish people, the Hebrew people at the time, with what we call the Chet HaEgel, the sin of the golden calf, which was an expression of anxiety, right? Of anxiety, of feeling abandoned, and of acting upon this abandonment. I want to invite us to look at it in a non-judgmental way. We've all done that. We've all acted out upon feeling abandoned, whether it was true or not, right? And one of the defense mechanisms. One of the strategies when we feel abandoned is to replace, right? So they replaced the God of Israel for something they made for themselves, which in a way could be commended, that they took things at hand, literally, very literally, right? But that was a disconnection of the heart, because when your heart is somewhere, you have what is called in psychology a more secure attachment. And so when who you are in relationship to isn't visible for a while, whether it's Moshe who disappeared for 40 days, or whether it's the God of Israel who is not visible, you still feel the presence. When you're connected to the heart, you don't need the eyes. Does that make sense? You don't need to someone to be at sight in order to know that they're there. You can feel their presence in your heart. And so I want to suggest that in the spiritual view kind of level, the problem of the golden calf was a problem of disconnection from the heart. And then when Moshe comes back, there's even more disconnection as the people kind of split, the camp divides between those who support Moshe, literally the camp of Moshe and the God of Israel, and the ones who want to go with the new God. And then we have Parashat Tetzaveh, which is a first level of healing with kindling the eternal flame. And then we have Parashat Vayekel. And it's just so moving to me to see the number of times that the mention of generosity of heart and the uplifting of the heart is being repeated. And so I want to show you yes, and also it kind of really highlights the people's agency, because here it's not just, it's not just about the artists of the crafts or the craftsmen who are to make the Mishkan. If you really look at the text, everybody contributes and does something. Okay, so I want to show you this for a moment. Okay, I'm going to skip passages. You can close your eyes, and that's even my invitation for you to close your eyes and to just hear the words and the repetition of this calling for the heart. Okay, every wise-hearted person must come forth and do the things. And then we have, examples of what is being brought. And then you have something so beautiful. Everyone whose heart uplifted them came forward. ויבוא כל איש אשר נשאו ליבו. And just the same way as we can see the Chet HaEgel as a downfall, this is a moment of elevation. Everyone whose heart had uplifted them to come forward. And everyone of generous spirit. וכל אשר נדיבה רוחו. We have generosity, we have spirit, okay? That they're invited to bring a truma. We're still bringing the truma, just like in Parashat Truma before. And that's another sign of tikkun, is that we're going back to where we were, but taking a step further. The man accompanied the woman. This is the first time we see something like this in the Bible, in the Torah. And it was just a Women's International Day. And so I wanna read this in celebration, that the men were accompanying the woman. Okay? And then again, every wise-hearted woman, right? Chochmat lev. Okay? And so you see that Chochmat lev is not just for Betzalel. Usually this is what we keep of the biblical narrative. But here it's talking about all these women of wise heart. Okay? And they brought things. And then again, all the women whose hearts inspired them. Right? V'chol hanashim asher nasa liben. Again, liban. Their heart uplifted them. Again. And here again, you see every man and woman among the Israelites whose heart compelled them to bring something for all the work. Right? Kol ish ve'isha asher nadav libam. Nedivat lev and chochmat lev. Wisdom of heart, generosity of heart, and wisdom of heart. So much so that Moshe has to tell them, stop. He has to tell them, stop bringing, stop giving. Isn't that so beautiful? Can you imagine if we were doing this to each other as we're building, our Jewish communities and our schools and our libraries, and that the leader had to say, no, stop bringing. It's too much. And I will actually share with you my soul sheet just because I want to keep my promise in a way, because I sent it. I don't want to go too much in this, but it's this idea that Vamlacha Haita Dayam. Die, from the word die, right? Dayenu, that we're going to say in a few weeks at Pesach, right? The work was enough. Lechol hamlacha la'asot ota, pardon. For the whole work to be done, it was enough, vehoter, and there was more. So it was not only enough, there was also more. And I will summarize to you this commentary of the Kedushat Levi that is quite gorgeous. What he's saying is that the ones who worked on the Mishkan, they had a lot of Ruach Kodesh. They had a lot of sacred inspiration of Holy Spirit. Lechochma Eliona, from an upper wisdom. Okay, ve'asu yichudim v'tzirufim. That's also why I added this one, because this is a biblical testimony of Jewish meditative practices, right? Yichudim, unifications, it's a Kabbalist technique of meditation. Tzirufim, it's another Kabbalistic technique, meditation technique that Abu Lafia kind of popularized. Tzirufim Kudoshim. Okay, so what it's saying is that the ones who built the Mishkan had divine inspiration, and they were doing it from a place of like deep kind of inner work in a way, okay, as a spiritual practice. But they needed to set a boundary. They needed to say die to themselves. Why? So that there was something left of this divine inspiration, letzadikim le'atid lavo. Letzadikim le'atid lavo, for the righteous ones, for the future. And who are the righteous ones for the future? It's potentially each of us. And so here, just so we have a connection, just so I was starting by talking about this kind of horizontal connection that I feel very deeply, like most Israelis, maybe with the people of Iran right now. There is a horizontal connection in space. Here, the Kedushat Levi is talking to us about a vertical connection in time and through time, from the people who built the Mishkan to us today. That they didn't use all the divine inspiration they had. They left some left over for us today. And then he it's just a small part of the commentary, yes? But then he said this very beautiful thing. Just as God left room within Maaseh Bereshit, setting limits to himself to leave space for the righteous, to introduce new insights, so too did they with the work of the Mishkan. Because everything we do, we're invited to imitate the divine. It's telling us, when the divine made the world, when life source brought the world into being, okay, it limited itself so as to leave space for us to introduce chidush, okay, to introduce new insights, lechadesh davar bebria. Just as God did it for us, so too, and even more so, Kal Vachomer, the builders of the Mishkan, left some of this for us. And what the Kedushat Levi is saying is that, and that's not in the source sheet, but that's what we learned with my class 2 days ago, yesterday, is that every time we learn Torah in this true way, in this true spiritual way, as something that is meant to kind of ignite some kind of inner work, some kind of insight, then we participate in the work of creation. We renew the world. So my dears, let's sit. I want to invite you to sit with me to do a meditation of chesed, of loving kindness, including, if you would like, okay, but you can choose who you want to include in your heart. I want to bless in my heart all the people of Israel and all the people of Iran and all the peoples in between who are affected by this war, okay? All these peoples in the Middle East. And for this meditation, I find it very helpful, actually, and beautiful to place a hand on my heart, a hand on my belly, or 2 hands on my heart. I'm going to say the Birkat Kohanim, which I will invite you to first receive for yourself, as if it was the first time. This blessing that's being said every day for millennia, for each of us. And that says, Yivarechecha Hashem ve'ishmerecha. May Life Source bless you and protect you. Can you receive it for yourself first? Blessing, protection, wherever you are in the world. May Life Source shine their face upon you and be gracious to you. And grace means to be spared, to be helped, to be favored, to be supported. That's grace. Chen. יישא השם פניו אליך וישם לך שלום. May Life Source lift up their face towards you and place upon you peace. And so receiving for yourself blessing, protection, light, which is enlightenment, to be enlightened, to be awake, to have clarity, heart consciousness clarity. To receive the grace of life, that life may be gracious to me. And to be at peace. And now from the heart, I really want to invite you to place your attention in the solar plexus, in the heart, maybe to feel there some warmth, maybe some warm light. Starting le'at, slowly to connect. If you'd like, you don't have to follow this prompt. You can do your own meditation. My invitation is to connect with the peoples in Israel, in Iran, in Kuwait, in Dubai, in Bahrain, everywhere in the Middle East, but especially the people of Israel and Iran. Trying to build something together and deserving to be blessed equally. May you be protected. May you be enlightened. May life be gracious to you. May you be at peace. May you be blessed. May you be protected. May you be enlightened. May you be at peace. Shortening just to 4 blessings. And if you want to include yourself, may we be blessed. May we be protected. May we be enlightened. May we be at peace. At your own pace with your own words. Don't try to get it right. Doesn't matter. The blessings just come up with what your heart inspires you to say. Just staying present for the next 3 minutes. And perhaps at some point there is just a silence, just your heart speaking by itself, just the energy from the heart towards all the people in Israel and in Iran. All the people who just want peace and safety, freedom. No matter their religion, their orientation. And last round together. May we be blessed. May we be protected. May we be enlightened. May we be at peace. Beautiful breath in, out. Feel free to keep your heart open and your heart warm and to have these energies of blessing keeping and circulating throughout the day. And let's get ready to say Kaddish with Rabbi Mark.
In Ratzon. Thank you so much, Rabbi Mira. Friends, let's seal this beautiful practice. An opportunity for those of you who are in mourning or observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to join the Kaddish to do so. If you're not reciting Kaddish, we ask please stay present for a few minutes to support those who are. And you can put the name or names of those you're honoring today in the chat now or after we recite Kaddish. Thanks to Rachel for sharing the words on the screen. If you're joining me, please rise in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Buchdahl,
Yikadash Shmei Rabbah,
Yama, Rakute, Yami, Chachute,
Yom
Chayekon,
Yomekon,
Yesakal,
Kol Beit Yisrael,
Bagala,
Bagala Uzman Karim V'Imru Amen.
Hishme
Shmei
Rabba
Rabbah Mevarach, Yalam Omei Amaya,
Barak,
Yitbarach, Yisbach, Yizar V'Aseh, Yitadar V'Yitalev V'Shnei Kedusha, Yichu.
Ela
Elam
Mikol
Mikol
Benata
Bechata
Shalom,
Vishirata Tush
V'chata
V'chashmat
V'nechamata
Nechamata Damiram
Damiram
B'Yama
V'Yam,
V'Yam
Amen.
Amen.
Shalom
Amen Shalom
Rabba
Rabami Jmayo
Chaim
Maleni
Aleinu
V'Kol Yisrael Ru Amen.
Shalom
Oseh
Namav
Shalom
Yashem
Ahuya Say Shalom
Kol
Aleinu
Yisrael
V'Kol
Kol
Yisrael
Yoshvei
V'Kol Yishmael V'Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'Kol Ha'olamim Imru Amen.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us today. If you're leaving us now, first of all, I'm going to put in the chat a link. Once more, we'll share the link to Rabbi Mira's ongoing offerings, meditations, and text study from the Kedushat Levi, the Hasidic commentator of the Torah. And thanks to Rachel Hugot for holding our space today. Just a reminder, if you're leaving us now, that we hope you'll join us tomorrow to mark 6 years of the daily sit. We'll be led by Mario Posat Dueñas. And on Friday, Rabbi Dorothy Richmond will lead us, and we'll sit together into Shabbat HaChodesh. Hard to believe. We move towards the month of Nisan and Pesach. And of course, as always, we hope you'll stay on, join us, conversation, just to share reflections on your experience with today's beautiful practice. You can put that in the chat. If you'd like to ask a question, you can do that as well. Just write question, all in caps if possible. And I'll try to work your question into the conversation. Mira, thank you so much as always. There's a lot to explore. I want to begin just by sharing from my, I would welcome people, encourage people to share your experience of sitting with the blessing practice. Basically, I want to start with where we, the practice that we engaged in, of how, I don't know if soothing is the right word, but centering, calming, anchoring, to focus on receiving and offering the blessings. And I really appreciate, you kind of, I don't know if this is your go-to translation for Birkat Kohanim or like the nutshell version of it, but the upshot of it being a blessing about experience a sense of blessing. So it was blessing, feel safe, protected, enlightened, which I really liked as, as a shorthand way of getting to the essence of that. And
by the way, we just had a question about this. We can talk about it after, about enlightenment. I'm just seeing the chat.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay. All right.
Continue. Yeah.
My eyes were closed. And it's I guess here's the question. That's just my reflection, is that wow, that was really soothing to get to that sense of the universal what we hope would be a universal human yearning for safety, for peace, for connection, etc., and to tap into that. Sometimes I describe this practice as pre-political. What we do is we don't get, it's not that we are avoiding the political, is that this is a moment before we get into like, well, what's the best way to get there, right? This is just, and I think that's why tapping into, oh, this is what it's about, as the essential human need for safety, and the need for enlightenment, and the need for peace, et cetera, et cetera. So that's by way of appreciation. And I wonder, so I guess I'm going to turn around and ask you what it's like for you, especially, I was in Israel recently, and now I'm, thousands of miles away, and you're there. What is it like for you when you shift into that blessing practice? And then I guess I want to talk a little bit about the nature of this being indigenous practice versus whatever we would compare it to. But so starting there, what's it like for you? What was your experience like in the sit today? How did you feel about the leader?
I thought she was great. I've learned to love her.
Yes,
My work is my practice.
Like a vote.
No, but seriously, I mean, love starts with ourselves. I mean, this is our first responsibility, is to love ourselves. And if we haven't learned, then now it's a good time. Now, it's very simple. When I feel disconnected, I feel scared, and the world feels like a threat. And so, I mean, all world traditions talk about it, right? Either the heart is open or it's closed, and it orients our relationship to life in very, very different ways. And so these meditations of heart opening, of blessing ourselves, blessing someone else, are absolutely essential to me. I'll say also that, it's not a bandage for me. It's not something that I started doing now because it's soothing during the war. I mean, those who meditate with me, we do this every Tuesday. Like every Tuesday is chesed meditation. That's what it is, And so it takes a different meaning. It takes an additional meaning during the war. But first and foremost, it's a way of being in life, that I understand that meditation, there are many, many meditation techniques, right? And I think mindfulness, Jewish mindfulness, hashkata that I do for the Rabbi Mipiezes no Yesh Kodesh, and chesed are different. They're complementary. And I think every meditator should have a chesed practice, a regular chesed practice, a practice that's about blessing themselves, blessing others. It's extremely healing. It's extremely important, like heart hygiene. And about what you said about pre-political, I think it's fascinating. I used to be a scholar. I used to be an academic. And I think it's very important to know our place in the world, right? And so someone who is into politics or NGOs, their work in the world is to work on systems through policies and decision-making, right, and action. Academics, their contribution, their truma to the world is through trying to help others understand. At least I was in the field of sociology and anthropology, so to understand cultures and how they function, right? And that's very important. That actually is being used by politicians, right, to build policies based on upon understandings, right? And then I shifted because I realized it's not so important for me to help understand societies and to build theories to understand how Jewish religious culture works. It's more important for me to help people work on themselves. It's more important for me. I'll start like this, to work on myself. And then my work is actually, I'm just sharing my practice. That's what I do.
Right.
I'm just sharing my practice.
Right.
And speaking about pre-political, when people ask me about what I do in life, I always say, like, this is my little tiny, tiny drop in the ocean, that I really believe that if everybody was working on themselves, on opening their heart and on developing their consciousness, speaking about enlightenment, and I do want to address this question, there would be no war. It's that simple. You know, if everybody was doing the work, there would be no violence in families. There would be no abuse at work. There would be, you know, but we need to work, and that starts with each of us.
That's beautiful. Okay, let's talk about enlightenment. That was one of the things that we were blessing ourselves and others with. And Lori's adding to the question here also in the chat. When we pray for enlightenment, how do we balance it with a prayer for not knowing, which was, I guess, the core of Sam Feinsmith's teaching yesterday about curiosity. So, and then somebody said, like, what is enlightenment in Judaism? What do we mean by enlightenment? Which is a really good question.
Yeah.
I'm going to interject, see what you think about, I think, since I was thinking about this actually earlier today, that for us, enlightenment really does connect with curiosity and not knowing, and receptivity, that revelation, awareness, and the content of before we get the content of revelation, when we get this from the story of being at Sinai, we have to be prepared and open for it. Right? And then we are in this state of enlightenment, which then is filled with content, which either arises from within or beyond, and then we can talk about like what's the content of that enlightenment. So to me, I guess I'm responding to Lori's question. I would say that actually curiosity and openness is an element of it, but I don't know. What do you think? How do you answer that?
So I had Sarah. I kept Sarah's question because it was the first question, and I kept it. Sure, I see it. So she writes, "When you say, 'May you be enlightened,' may I be enlightened? What is the Jewish concept of enlightenment?" So it's the same question, and she's like, she says, "I believe I understand what the Buddha meant." Okay, so I'm going to leave aside what the Buddha meant, because I want to focus on us. I'll start with this. It's actually quite appropriate with Pesach. Because Pesach, in a Hasidic perspective, is seen as the redemption from unconsciousness, right? Mitzrayim is, the Meorenaim describes it as a state of being which is galut hada'at, right? The exile of consciousness. Enlightenment, I think we can see it as something that belongs to da'at, which is kind of there in the tree of the Sfirot. And da'at is knowledge, but knowledge in an experiential way, okay? And it's kind of knowing reality, meeting reality. And it's interesting because someone asked a Zen master, well, there you go, I'm doing a comparison. Someone asked a Zen master, what is enlightenment? And he had this gorgeous answer, which is it's intimacy with the 10,000 things. That means to be intimate with the whole world, right? And that's that, right? The first time we have that in the biblical narrative is when Adam knows Chava. It's like the first union, and it's intimacy. It's really like, speaking of curiosity and not knowing, it's giving ourselves to an experience, to someone, to an encounter. It's being vulnerable and receiving and knowing, meeting the other's vulnerability. And we are invited to do the same with the divine, which is this kind of mystery that cannot be grasped. And that's also enlightenment, is understanding, like Avraham did, that there is a source of life beyond everything that is palpable, and that I'm not going to think that there is a God of the trees and the God of the stars and that there is a source of life that is not, that's enlightenment, is being able to see through appearances from consciousness. That's my short answer on one foot.
Right. That's a great answer. And in Jewish mysticism, I think, we probably would say the same thing, that it's really this awareness that it's all God, that that divinity and the interconnectedness of everything pervades everything, and it is the awareness of that.
Exactly, and that's it. Yeah.
Go ahead. Go.
No, I was just going to add to your point, like exactly this. It's like it's awareness of truth, and truth is reality in a Jewish. And what is reality is that everything is permeated by life source, by one life source, right? That's it. Just like the Buddha's enlightenment is kind of the consciousness of how things are beyond the ego. For us, it's the same, but we have this kind of the divine is there in the picture, which the Buddha didn't occupy himself with. That's the main difference.
Right. We only have 1 minute, but I'm going to throw out. Lately I've been thinking more about the the term and the of dveikut as a way of
Right.
describing this practice. Also, dveikut meaning literally means cleaving, but really being something we're talking about being flush with that experience. So we're not synonymous with it, but we are, like you said, it's not just a cognitive knowing, right?
No, no, no.
It's an immersion in awareness, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's very important to understand that it's not something that is intellectual. Consciousness is not intellectual. And in that way, in that sense, babies are much more enlightened than we are. They're much more connected to life, right? What we do when we start to learn and to have a sense of self is we start actually disconnecting ourselves from life. And that I'm glad I'm talking about this now because it kind of brings us back to the beginning, the problem of disconnection. And what, in a way, what we have to do is to unlearn meeting the world from there, right, from the word of distinctions and separation, and that, and understanding that enlightenment, we want intellect our way through it. And I know many of you, I'm looking at you now in the little windows, you may be using your brain a lot because you're Jewish. Right, I've been
You
using
can't
my
help
brain
it.
a lot to figure life out. It doesn't work. It does not work. It's something about da'at and tiferet, the heart, right?
Yeah.
That point of truth.
We didn't get to talk about that, the heart, unfortunately, but Mira, we're at time. Thank you so much, as always. Just always a blessing to have an opportunity to practice with you. And I'm just especially appreciative, like I said at the outset, to have this chance to connect with you in these very, very, very difficult times. May they lead somehow to something much better.
Amen.
And may you and everyone stay safe and well.
Amen.
And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. And hope you stay safe and well till then. And to everybody who's here, again, as always, much gratitude to you for bringing your full self here and being here, being supporting of each other and yourselves in this practice, and to Rachel for holding us together. Hope to see you tomorrow to share some cake on our sixth day. And until then, be safe and well, everyone. Many blessings.
Bye bye. Many blessings.